Hi, my name's Keith Cooper from No Flight Images, and this video today is unashamedly about new kit. I've often said it doesn't matter that much what kit you use for your photography, but having the right kit and kit you're comfortable with can make one heck of a difference. Now, I'm a commercial, architectural, industrial photographer, so I've got an excuse for some specialisms. In particular, I've moved, and I've done some videos about this, I moved from my Canon 5DS, which I still use, to Fuji GFX 100S. Now, 100 megapixel medium format, it is, a small medium format, but appreciably larger sensor size than the 35mm. I do notice the difference, all sorts of reasons. But anyway, just turned up this morning, Fuji from Fujifilm UK, 45 to 100 zoom, and the one I've been waiting for a long while. Fuji kindly lent me one several occasions to do testing. This is the Fujifilm 30mm f5.6 tilt shift lens. The tilt shift lens that is the best I've ever used in terms of overall image quality, particularly useful for what I do for architecture and for landscape and things as well. Now, anyway, in true YouTube tradition, I thought I'd wait and we can have an unboxing. Now, you might see this huge, great pile of lenses behind me. Once I've just whipped these out of the box here, I'm actually going to go through some lenses here, a mix of old and new lenses, as to which ones I still use on the GFX, which ones were okay on the 5DS, but really do show their age or limitations in other ways. Quite an interesting range of lenses. You'll notice one giveaway. Here is the TSE 50mm tilt shift lens that I got recently. I will be doing a whole load more testing and checking out of these things. In particular, I'm going to do a test of how good the 50mm is on the GFX. Quick hint, very good, otherwise I wouldn't have bought a brand new one. I know how good it is, but anyway, let's have a quick look at what we've got here, courtesy of the House of Photography. There we go. Don't really want to sort of cut my hand on video. We'll start with the 45-100. All the usual little labels. We have a bag for it. We have an owner's manual. And let's have a look inside. So the actual lens, here it is. Ooh, one 45-100. Now, why did I get 45-100? Why is that the first, apart from the tilt shift, which I was always going to get? Why is this the lens I've got? Well, I'll show some other lenses I use a lot and why this one is near enough the equivalent. You'll notice that you might think 45 to 100 is quite long. Don't forget this is on medium format, so multiply those numbers by about 0.79, 0.8 to get the rough equivalent for 35mm. That takes this from the 100, takes it down to about an 80, and so it's almost a 40-80. Not a great zoom lens, but 40-80. I looked at all my photography over the years and what focal lengths I use. Now, I don't use Lightroom or anything like that, so I just opened up some of my archive in Bridge, told it to search subfolders, and then just looked at the EXIF data, the actual shot data, to give me an idea what focal lengths I've used in different types of photography over the years. That's why I've got this. Now, pop that down. Comes with a lens hood as well. We don't worry about that at the moment. There is the lens. Now, the one that, as I say, I have been waiting for, and I know lots of people are waiting for this lens. I asked for this a long time ago, and it's taken till now for me to get hold of one. Here we go. It's all the usual paperwork. Another bag. Now, I've looked at this lens, so I know it has multiple different attachments. It has a lens foot. Now, I'll show when I show some of these other lenses down here that I use, why the lens foot's quite useful. This one, a somewhat heftier owner's manual than the 45-100, which is after all just a basic zoom lens. So let's see if we can find out whether I've actually got a lens in here. Oh yes, it had to be something. This is a heavy lens. I'm certainly not at the moment going for lightweight kit. Maybe when I get a few more advanced years, I will perhaps look at lightweight kit. But at the moment, quality wins out over lightweight for what I want to do. There we go. Oh, it even has a bit of sticky tape around it, covering the movements. Now, let's pop those into there. So there we go, 2 new lenses. Now, some of you who may have noticed, I did a post recently about some family issues we had. Unfortunately, both of Karen's parents died very suddenly within a few days of each other. My own father died last year. I mentioned this in aspects of things. One of the things was that he asked me when he was ill beforehand and that, before he went into hospital, one of the things he just said, so what lenses are you going to buy? And I was able to tell him some of the stuff. This is one, the 2 I mentioned were this and probably this. I didn't share other stuff, but this is, thanks Dad, because I genuinely wouldn't have been able to afford this for the business. Now, I'm sure these will contribute to our photography business, but it may take a while for them to pay for themselves. Now, the TSE 24 that I've got here that I've used for years has paid for itself many times over. So there we have, I've got, and let me just remove the sticky paper here. So there we go. Assorted lenses. Now, I'll be doing some stuff actually on these. As I said, this video is unashamedly about the joy of playing around with kit. Those of you who want to sort of dismiss that with suitable disdain, that a good photographer can take pictures with any kit, yeah, you go ahead and do that. This afternoon, yeah, I got some new toys to play with. So 30mm tilt shift. I've tested this. I've got lots of examples already of using it. It gives an equivalent focal length between 5DS, between that GFX. It gives about a 24mm focal length. That was always my favourite focal length. The 45-100, I mentioned about some of the other stuff. It's effectively replacing this. Now, this is the old 24, this is an EF 2470 2.8L. It's the original version of it. I bought this lens, well, I bought my first lens of this one in 2004 with a Canon 1DS. And it has been good enough that it has lasted me for years. Now, people say, well, it's not necessarily that great. It turns out, about after I'd had it 4 or 5 years, I banged it against something and seriously knocked it out of alignment, sent it off to Canon to repair it. And it came back a new lens, new series. It was basically, they swapped the lens out. They had to get a part for it or something like that. The new one they sent me back was an extremely good lens. So this lens has lasted me on the 5DS for years. Why not on here? Well, the autofocus is a little bit sluggish. This is about the only lens I ever use much with almost everything you see here, apart from this, the 45-100, almost everything here is manual focus. This I use for autofocus. I've tried this with an adapter on the GFX. It works very well. It almost has the coverage for it, and certainly unless you shoot very wide, you don't notice any corner vignetting or anything. So it's not a quality issue, it's really a practicality issue. So this is the lens that is most getting retired. So the old 2470, that one's, well, I will keep it and use it with that probably. Anyway, we'll put it over the back there. What about some of these other lenses? I mentioned that I'd go through some of the stuff I use and not. Well, Ones that have made the cut, as it were, in going from the 5DS are the TSE-17. Now, you have to be careful using this. You can't, if you use the full amount of shift on it, you will certainly notice difference. But this is a 17mm lens, which gives the equivalent of about a 14 or so. So this is equivalent to about a 14mm shift lens if it's on the GFX. Yes, the shift is good. You have to be very careful with focusing to allow for slight field curvature or things like that. Very much dependent on a subject. This is a lens that if I'm using it, and I have used it on commercial work on the GFX here, I have sometimes shot crop mode with this. Remember, crop mode on the GFX is still 60 odd megapixels, and it is higher quality 60 megapixels than the 50 megapixels of the 5DS, and I noticed that. But where I have used this at the full size sensor size on this, I've limited the amount of shift, and I have paid a lot of attention to focusing, zooming in very carefully and checking the focusing. And that's actually checking for sharpness, not just relying on focus peaking, which, whilst it's good for focusing shifted lenses like this, I find that I want to actually look at the detail. That's where I'm using this on a tripod. If I'm using it on a tripod, then I might well use it with one of the TSE frame adapters I've got. Certainly for interiors I will. Now here's the TSE-24. This also works well on the GFX. Once again, limitations. If you do strong diagonal shift, you will notice perhaps a tiny bit of shift vignetting as well as the edge of the image circle, but it works well. It needs care again in use. So, but this one here, the equivalent is about this field of view on the GFX is equivalent to the TSE-17 on the 5DS. They have their uses, but one of the reasons this one I've used it so much, and I said it paid for itself many times over, is because this particular lens at 24mm field of view fits, gives me a perspective I like. It's not wildly exaggerated. I mean, I use the wider lenses. It's not wildly exaggerated on the 5DS. Put it on the GFX and it's just a little bit too wide for many times I want it. So yes, I could use it on crop, or that's where the 30mm comes in. Now this works impeccably across the range of shift, so I could use that with no trouble whatsoever. Let's say this one, I've got a TSE frame on it from Rigetti. This allows the tripod to hold the lens and you shift the camera however you want it. Now I'm using this, it's with a photodiox adapter on here. Don't ask me about different types of adapters. I've not done any comprehensive testing. That one works and that's good enough. And so that allows me movements on that with the movements of the camera with this fixed. I've got the lens foot that comes with the TS30 lens. That's that one there. So that one allows that. And I've also got, and I mentioned the 50 earlier. Now the 50 on the 5DS, it's useful as standard lens, and it's a very good quality lens. But on the GFX, this gives the equivalent of about a 40 odd millimeter lens. Now it's just a little bit wider, well, noticeably wider than the 50 on the 5DS. That extra bit of width fits in far better with the kind of views I like. So this one here, as I say, this is equivalent of about a 40mm. This one here is equivalent to about 24 and downwards in the list. So you'll notice this one's also, I've put the frame on it. Now, there's a different frame that fits this one. This frame here takes the 17 as well. This frame just takes the 50. I don't use these a lot, even when I'm stitching outdoors, because unless you've got relatively close objects crossing far objects, you don't get much parallax, particularly if you do an up-down shift, which I'm more likely to do when I'm doing stitching. This one works very well, by the way, if you set this to square format. So if you set the internal crop, and remember, it's not really cropping the data, it's just setting a crop. So if you use the square crop on this, on the GFX, it shows you in the viewfinder, you get a lovely square view, and it really is quite interesting to use a square view with shift. It's quite, you know, it just gives you that extra little bit of a nudge to think about different formats. I don't normally use the crop mode in this unless it's 35mm crop, but this one here, put it into square mode, very nice, works with this. So I've got that, that's the 50. That works very well. What about some of these other assorted lenses here? Have any of them really made it for me to use? Well, I've got a video where I mentioned this. This is the Canon EF815 fisheye lens. This has the coverage to just about work at full width to give you just a tiny bit of corner vignetting. You have to be careful, but it's a fisheye. If you want circular view, it's excellent. It does work very well. A fisheye for an equivalent fisheye for the GFX would be, I don't know, what would it be, 10 to 20 mil or something like that. However, it would cost an awful lot to be of comparable optical quality to this. I don't use this very often, but when I do use it, and I've got reviews of most of these lenses, it's particularly, if not videos, I've got reviews on the Northlight Images website over the years when I've got the lenses about the different lenses. So that still makes it. Here is my MPE 65. Now this is a macro lens I use for specialist macro work. Does 1:5 magnification. As before, even if I just crop it down on the GFX, I still get a better sensitivity out of it, better resolution, and the image files are better. There is at wider, so at 1:1 ratio, you can just see a little bit of shading in the corners on the GFX here. If you increase the magnification anymore, you do get appreciable corner vignetting. So this is not a full frame lens for it, but the kind of stuff I do macro of, I don't do insects and things and whatever. I do technical things. They tend to be electronic components and related items, that engineering type macro photography. This is still fine on here. However, I am likely to still use the 5DS for that, just because even though Fuji have recently improved the tethering software a lot, I've got automated focus stacking software and a controller that handles this really well. So that one there, the MPE 65 and that. In terms of macro lenses for medium format, I have looked at, and I look at some of the Lauer microscope objectives. I haven't forgotten that. Various things happened that derailed that bit of testing, but it is still planned. So we've got that. Another one here, the original 1992 TSE 90. This has enough coverage to work perfectly on the GFX 100S. Don't need to worry about vignetting. The quality is good. The quality of this, for the amount I use it and the kind of things I use it for, is such that I haven't got the new version of this, the one that came out at the same time as the 50mm. Detailed review of that, all of these lenses and other lenses I've got. This one works really well. Nice lens to use. A few other odds and ends. Got lots of adapted lenses that I've used in the past for experimenting. I have been using some of them a bit with the GFX, but now I've got the 45-100. Several of these old Mamiya lenses, although that's a 35, several of these old Mamiya lenses, which are very good, such as this 55mm, there's an 80mm there as well, I don't need them. I have been using them because I've now got this, and it has got image stabilizing and it's got autofocus. Now that makes quite a bit of difference to the kind of work where I use this. This one would have been nice with image stabilization on it, but I didn't need it. The combination of body image stabilization and lens stabilization in this means that suddenly I've got a much more useful lens set for the kind of work. Typically, let's say I'm in a factory or something like that, I can't take lighting gear round with me. I just need some sort of candid shots of of machinery or people at work on machinery. I can't even necessarily sometimes use flash or something like that, although ideally I would use flash with it, but I want something that gives me good performance and lets me. Now, 5DS and this, I've got lots of shots, so it's not impossible. It's not, yeah, it just makes it that little bit more difficult. So that one there. Any others? Yes, here's one that's out. This original Canon 50mm f1.4. Yeah, even this works on the GFX. But I have to say, this was one I just tended to use when I needed a 50mm straight, because it's f1.4. If I need the aperture, well, I've got some other stuff. This, although this is only f4, this one here, it really is going to make a bit of a difference. So, any other? Yes. This is, yeah, I said this is not my entire lens drawer. I have several drawers with assorted lenses, old ones that I've been given over the years and picked up on the way. These are ones that I have used commercially in the last 5 years, let's say. At the back here, a white lens, EF 70 to 200. 2.8 LIS. Now, the image stabilizing works on this, on the GFX. The field of view is a little bit short on it, so this is another one that I would use if absolutely I needed it. It's not that long. I don't shoot long. You'll notice no long lenses here. I don't do that sort of photography. Now, I've got some 500s and various other bits and pieces. I've got an 1100 mirror lens, which I really ought to see how well that works on the Fuji sometime. But anyway, I've got all sorts of odds and end lenses. Have a look at the Northlight Images site. I've got tons of stuff about things like that. But this is what this. When I go on a job, I will typically take 2 or 3 lenses. And this is the collection where they come from. Is there anything? Yeah, there are a few. Oh, one I forgot. Now, this is one that I looked at because Astrahori, when I was testing a macro lens, they said, oh, you've got medium format, haven't you? Yes, I said, because I was testing the RF mount version. And they sent me this, which is a 75mm f4 manual focus. It's a very nice lens. In fact, if you look at the aperture settings, it actually goes down to 2.8, but they don't advertise it at 2.8 because the softness and mush increases drastically. This is a very interesting looking lens, and I'm sure if you took the time to really get into it, you could get some great shots. But I don't do portraits and things like that, which is where this really, I think, would shine. I've done some landscapes with this. I did an example with some prints and things. That's a nice lens. It's a very solid lens. It's a fully manual, medium format lens, 75mm, say f4 nominally. Yeah, that's a nice lens. But I was using it, I was testing it. I will include, when I do some more detailed testing of this 45-100, I will do a comparison shot between that and this at the same nominal focal length. And you'll see why this one here is massively cheaper than this one here. Yeah, I think I'm going to get quite a bit of use out of this. Anyway, that's enough me rambling on about different bits of lenses and kit. As I say, I do enjoy this aspect of it every so often, because I've always believed that if you understand how to use kit well enough, you can ignore that almost all the time, and it then lets you express yourself in your photography. Now, because of, as I say, the various family difficulties we've had of late, my photography has suffered greatly. On many occasions, I just not felt like going out and taking photos. Testing kit is one of those things that gives me a bit of a boot up the rear and says, go on, do something. Just go out and do something. So I will be doing that. But yeah, fortunately, I don't have to carry all of this lot around with me all the time. Or I should say, fortunately, Karen doesn't have to help me carry all this lot of the stuff around at the same time. So there we have one table of assorted stuff. Hope that was of some interest. I say my normal service will be resumed, but yeah, new toys, excellent. Anyway, thank you for watching. Cheers. Bye.